A little boy once returned home from Hebrew school, and his father asked, "Tell me, what did you learn today?" And the little boy answered, "Well, the rabbi told us how Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt." And the father thought this was fantastic. "Tell me, how did this happen?" And the boy said, "Well, Moses was a really strong man, and he hit Pharaoh. And while Pharaoh was down, he got all of the people together, and they ran towards the sea. And when they got to the sea, they found a team of architects. And they took the architects, and they built a bridge from one end to the other, and that's how we became free." The father was shocked. "That's what the rabbi is teaching you in Hebrew school?" And the little boy replied, "No, Daddy, but you never believe what they told us today." A burning bush that is not consumed, frogs and hail and darkness from one end of Egypt to the next, a sea that is miraculously split, and the giving of the 10 Commandments. We tell a pretty dramatic story year after year. But this year, when you think about what our people endure, our Jewish story still feels unfathomable. Because if we explain to future generations, to our great-grandchildren, that 59 hostages still remain in Gaza, that we have brothers that remain shackled in the torture tunnels by Hamas, our current story sounds like a horrific nightmare. It's a story not to be believed. And so this morning on Passover, we are left with a very important question, a difficult question. Passover is characterized as Man Cherutenu, the time of our freedom. How do we celebrate the freedom of our ancestors thousands of years ago when our people in 2025, when those who are still held in bondage in Gaza pray that God hears their cries, that they too will be redeemed? Rabbi Shmuel Golden, a rabbi in Englewood, New Jersey, he defines cherut. He defines freedom in the following way. He says that freedom it's not that bad yet. That kid's going to be a future president of Sinai Temple. I know it. I know it. Rabbi Golden says that freedom is the injection of positive purpose and value into one's life. That the individual who enjoys cherut, who enjoys freedom, he chooses to pursue a higher goal. He actively frees himself from servitude to the surrounding world. And he concludes with a lesson that I hope each and every one of us takes today and into the following days of Passover. He says that freedom cannot be granted by another, but must be attained by the individual himself. His idea that only the individual can truly free themselves resonated after listening to the recent words of Rachel Goldberg Polin. Rachel, the mother of murdered hostage Hirsch Goldberg Polin. She was invited to speak on Dan Senor's podcast, Call Me Back. And Dan asked Rachel, he said, listen, this is the second year of Passover while the war in Israel continues. The first year, you didn't know if your son was living or not. But in the second year, Rachel has since buried her son. And she continues to live knowing that hostages remain captive by Hamas in Gaza. So how is this woman, how is this mother supposed to commemorate a festival of freedom when so many that she knows are not yet free? And how do we as a Jewish community around the world commemorate a festival of freedom when the Jewish people feel as if a part of our body remains shackled in Gaza? And Rachel offered so many answers, so many brave answers. But today I want to offer two takeaways. First, she explained that a festival of freedom is a recognition of the freedoms that have been stripped away. She implores us, each of us, to cry at our seders tonight, because unless we do, unless we cry, we will not be able to see ourselves as if we have left Egypt. That we need not take the parsley and dip it into the salt water, because your tears tonight should be the only drops of salt water that we need. We cry now because we know the first-hand accounts of the brutality experienced by Liri Albag, by Keith Siegel, by Yarden Bibas, the father of Ariel and Kafir, husband to Shiri, all murdered by Hamas. And if you do not know their stories, it is our responsibility, it's our obligation this Pesach to read and learn and research and understand how quickly freedom can be taken away from us, taken in October of 2023, and how this lack of freedom continues to be an ongoing, palpable plague. As our hostages remain in Gaza, it's a plague that we live out every single day. The second takeaway was a lesson from Rachel and John's son, Hirsch. Former hostage Or Levy was released from Gaza on day 491. And when he arrived, he immediately asked to speak to Hirsch's parents. It was already on day 496 in the hospital, because Or wanted to let Rachel and John know that he was in captivity with Hirsch. And even in the tunnels of Gaza, he held on to hope, because it was their son Hirsch that taught Or how to experience freedom even while enslaved. How did he do this? Hirsch took a quote from Holocaust survivor and psychologist Viktor Frankl from his book, Man's Search for Meaning. The book is a memoir of Frankl's life within the concentration camps and contains his tools, his spiritual tools for survival. And from Frankl's work, Hirsch used the following quote as a means for his own survival and so many others. And here's the quote. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. And Hirsch would repeat that to Or. He would repeat that to any hostage that he would see, and he would say to Or, you have a son. You have a why to live. And they would ask each other every single day and night, what is your why? What's the why that will get us from day to night and night to day? And on 491, on that day, Or Levy was reunited with his 3-year-old son, his son Olmog. And when Or saw him, he said, I see a sweet boy with long curly hair, and I'm shocked because he's grown so very much. Shocked, so I cry again, but this time I cry tears of joy. Or said to his baby boy, his 3-year-old, do you know why I'm happy? And Almog replied, you're happy, Abba, because we reached you. It was Hirsch's encouragement. It was Hirsch's motivation and Hirsch's Torah that reminded those in captivity that freedom isn't only when your captors physically release you, but freedom can be attained when you choose, no matter your circumstances, no matter your hardships, no matter the strangling nature of your situation, to find your why. Because when we find our why, the path toward freedom is suddenly unveiled. I struggled this week thinking about the exact moments when the Israelites realized they were free. Were they free when they stepped into the Sea of Reeds and it miraculously split? Or maybe they realized their freedom when they received the 10 Commandments. When did freedom begin? If you look at the Haggadah, the story doesn't start with Moses and Miriam. The story that we tell in the Maggid section of the Seder begins with God's promise to Abraham. God said to Abram, "Know that your children and their children, they will be strangers in a strange land not their own, and they will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. But then following this, the Haggadah recites the following words, Baruch Shomer Habtacho LiYisrael. Blessed be God who keeps his promise to Yisrael. And Eli Wiesel, in his commentary on the Haggadah, explains that that verb used, shomer, is used in the present. Why? Because that divine promise that was made to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, that promise is also ours. As though God has made that promise to each and every one of us. God promised that I would return to Jerusalem. God promised all of us redemption. In other words, freedom for the children of Israel begins the moment that God says there will be times in history in which we are enslaved. But hear this, our people will live to see redemption. Even enslaved for hundreds of years, the Jewish people were given a why. Maybe they knew, or maybe they dreamt that one day their people would be free, that their people would sit around Seder tables telling their story. Or perhaps they even envisioned a possibility where hundreds of Jews would come to a synagogue just like this to pray on Passover. Well, maybe they didn't envision it exactly like this. But nevertheless, imagining Jews continuing their faith, praying with vigor, determining our own why so that future generations will have the opportunity to contemplate their own. Our patriarchs and our matriarchs' whys. That is the reason we are all joined here today. A few weeks ago, Pedram Salimpour invited me to drive with him and Shervin Gabayin to see their destroyed homes and community in the Palisades. And as we drove through street after street, witnessing the ruins and the ashes and dreams destroyed, I asked the two of them how they were coping while experiencing such immense loss. And upon some reflection, a few days after the drive, Pedram wrote the following. He said, as Shervin and I both shared, our perspective as Jews is different. We don't see ourselves as just part of one community. We are part of a much larger one that we know celebrates with us and suffers alongside us. The challenges ahead are mitigated for us because we know what our parents went through. We know what they came here with literally nothing. And also because we can only imagine what happened in Israel on October 7th. At the time when reading that email, I didn't realize that Pedram and Shervin and so many of you that lost your homes this year spiritually survived time and time again because you know how to articulate your why, and thus you have found your how. And for many of you sitting here today, it's not the first time you lost a home overnight. You had your Leil Shimurim, your night of watching before fleeing. And part of your why is the visceral bond to the Jewish people and the Jewish story, which we know is filled with Jews throughout time, walking through narrow straits. Jews still holding on to freedom, knowing that our story is connected and requisite for generations to follow. There's a story in which someone noticed Rav Elyashiv inspecting his home for chametz, looking for the leaven products the night before Pesach. And he was inspecting his home with deep and determined intensity. He looked under every couch cushion. And one person asked, "Listen, Rav, I think you've looked enough. Are you afraid of missing a crumb?" And the Rav said, "No, you have it all wrong. I'm not just looking for crumbs. I'm searching for any part of myself that's still holding on to Mitzrayim." We leave Mitzrayim. We leave Egypt. We find freedom even if we are still enslaved, be it by the physical shackles of Gaza, be it by the emotional shackles endured in losing homes in the fires, or perhaps spiritual or mental shackles from the difficulties that many of us experience every single day. And we find freedom when we choose to do as Hirsch inspired, to find a why to live. Manish Tanah Halayla Hazeh, how is this night different from all other nights? We tell the stories of our ancestors, those whose whys willed us to be here today. And we tell the stories of our present, refining our whys for generations to come. May this Passover continue to be a festival of freedom for every Jew, past, present, and future. Chag Sameach.